My name is Sargis. I'm originally from Armenia, so I can understand every type of mentality in Belarus. Unfortunately, I will talk in English. Вы можете задавать вопросы на русском, я понимаю, но чувствую комфортно говорить на английском. Okay. I have more than 5 years experience in test automation and about 7 years in testing. Today I want to present you page object pattern and with specific case, loadable component pattern. Who is familiar with the Selenium, working with them? Nice. Page object pattern? Okay. Loadable component, it's one of the part of the, it's a pattern for exactly for the page objects. So if you are not familiar with the page object, it's still fine because I'm going to give a short introduction about the page objects. Then we'll go forward for the loadable component. And as a result of the loadable component, we are fixing one huge problem in Selenium. It's waiting. So I guess everyone had a problem with the waiting in a Selenium, to wait for the load, to wait for the network, to wait for the JAX, anything else. So loadable component is one of the way, for me, is the best way to avoid problems in the waiting. So today we're going to talk introduction, which already we started, page object pattern, which I will try to feel. If you are comfortable, I will run a bit faster, then continue with other topics. If no, we can go deep here. We will talk about the general weights in the Selenium, loadable component, slow loadable component. We will talk about the implementation on a real project, kind of a real project. I created some examples because usually talking about something, people always asking how we can implement in our project. So I will try to show how you can implement in the existing project. I will talk generally about the failures in creating a Selenium framework and the Selenium testing, and then question and answer. So, several words about demos. I'm using Java. If you are familiar with Java, it's good. So everything that we will discuss will be applicable strongly to the strongly typed language like C#. Most of things that I will talk about, you can also implement in the dynamic languages. Also, I'm going to use Maven, test engine, of course, Selenium. Okay, what is a page object pattern? I mean, this is the definition from the website. Page object pattern in a framework design, which become popular in the Selenium testing, which reduce the code duplication, trying to make the code more maintainable, and also it's trying to make navigation between a page better, faster, and this is one of the reliable pattern for the Selenium. For example, we have application with the multiple pages. For this kind of the cases, we are using for every page we are defining an object like home page, login page, registration page. Every page in the page object pattern is an object, and each page has a specific service, and they are providing a specific functionality for related to the exact page. Going ahead. So advantages for it promotes reuse and refuses the duplication. It makes test more reliable and robust. It makes test less brittle. So and improves maintainability. If UI change, so this is one of my favorite part. So if UI changed, there is some changes in UI. You're just changing something in one place in the object. You are not going to all the tests to change everything and change all the tests. And handle of each page using its instance. How it's structured. Each page defines as a class. Actions are defined as functions. Each function can return a new page. So this will be make more painless the navigation between a page. Tests only talk to each to the page objects, which I will explain in the next slide. What does it mean? Page objects only talk to the base object, and the base objects talks only to the WebDriver. Elements on the page are sorted as variables, so you can use them in your functions. This is the simple way how actually the page objects looks like. Here we have a Selenium. Here is browsers, and the browsers like render the web application. Here are tests and the report. So this is the simplest version. What I suggest with the page objects, so Selenium should talk to the page object. And what I'm strongly suggest to do, to use a base page. So here the base page is something between your framework and the Selenium. So when for example, Selenium has a type, you're defining your type using the Selenium type in the base object, base page, and then every page object extends from the base page. I will show later the examples. If there is something that you didn't get, you will understand later. So, and then tests are talking with the page objects only. To be more specific, if I will show with the layers, there is on the top the tests, page objects, Selenium driver, and the web application in the browser. Here, every layer should talk with the neighbors. Which does mean, so your test never should call a Selenium method. Your test should call only your method in the page object. If you have a jumping between these layers, then you are going to the wrong direction. Your test should call only page object. Page object should interact with the web driver. Something in the middle here, I'm showing in the last diagram that there is also base object, but generally base object is your framework. This is a real example how it looks like. The example I will share in a GitHub. I will post in the conference page, or I will transfer to the organizers. They will share with you. So here it's the page object. This is a base object. I will show the content also. Here is the setup part that I'm always strongly suggest you to separate from the main part. And here are the tests. So in the base object, we are collecting the general methods that interacting with the Selenium, like opening declaring the URL, opening the page, URL, open, and the continuation. This is all the methods that are interacting with the Selenium. So type, find, click, etc. So we will never directly going from the test. We will never directly going to Selenium WebDriver and saying click. We always use our method declined here. So this is also helps us to better maintainability and exception handling. So you can define, for example, I guess everyone knows that is displayed element returning true when there is an element, and returning timeout exception when there is no element. So if you want to check that the element shouldn't be there, you need such method like this, which is too global to you, and you can use in your every test to check that in some condition there is no element. So you are there is try catch, exception handling that will return false if there is no element. This is the method that you should keep in a top parent level. so you will not duplicate the code later. This is the setup. Generally, in the setup, I'm creating usually driver and 2 high-level stuff. Here, I'm showing that in the setup, you can check that if driver null, so it's the first test that's going to be run, we are creating a driver. So the driver, I guess, you know, I'm not going to the deeps. You can change like to Chrome, Edge, Internet Explorer, etc. So this is base test. So generally, we are using the before and the after, before each test. And mostly before and the after class, I'm collecting in the base test, and every test class are extending from the base test. Here, for example, I'm closing the driver after every class run. Also here, you can remove cookies, clear caches. So a bit of general stuff that we need to do that for every test. So it's going to the base page, and you will not duplicate again the codes. And this is how the test looks like with the page objects. So you see that I never call any method from the Selenium. All the methods that I'm using here, it's the methods defined in the base class and the page objects. Wait. This is the most painful part in the Selenium. Why we need to wait? Like to wait for the element, wait for the transaction, wait for, I don't know, the Ajax will be. Sorry?
Wait for dynamically loading content.
Yep. For that reason, we'll use the slow loadable component. So usually people use sleep thread. I saw a lot of people using that, especially in India. When I was talking, like that, the Indian people was fond of the sleeping. And another surprising thing for me in India, I was talking about the short tests, about checking just one logic in the test. And one of the senior QA engineers asked me, what do you mean by saying a short test? I was saying the short test, like what do you mean physically, how long it should be, like maximum 40 lines, and it should check one business logic. They said, no way. I say, why? No, in our company, the best practice test like going to the 2,000 lines. I say, what? 2,000 lines? And then Simon, who like one of the creators of the web drivers, I just turned around. Did you imagine that you will create a like web driver and people will write 2,000 lines per one test? And he said, what? So it's the huge test, so they are using a lot of sleeps to handle all that stuff. So never sleep. Be always interactive. Because sleeps are too expensive and life is too short for sleeping. You will sleep, then you will have more than 4,000 tests when the company is big. You are running your tests on the clouds and you are wasting money. Okay, it's company money, but anyway. So instead of that, we can get a promotion. So, how long we need to wait? The best answer is until the action is end. So, for that, Selenium offers 3 types of the sleeping, kind of sleeping, waiting. First is implicit wait, explicit wait, and a fluent wait. So, we'll go one by one. Explicit wait. It applies globally. So if you are using, it's one parameter and you cannot define per test. So if you don't need to wait for some of the tests, it still will wait. It's undocumented by Seleniums, which means that they don't suggest to use. It runs on the Selenium side. It means it runs from the remote side, which is not best way. it works only for waiting the elements. If you are calling the isDisplayed or waiting for the element, finding the element in that part. And it returns element not found or found, true or false. But the worst part, when you are checking that there shouldn't be element, it still will wait the time until the timeout, then will return false. Which means when you are checking that there is no element, you are wasting the time. You cannot customize it globally, so you are setting, and here is the way to implement. You are just putting on driver, manage, timeout, and that's all. And the best way to not use it, it's almost sleep. Especially when you are checking that there is no element, it's kind of a sleep. So the best way, forget about this. The next one is explicit wait. So here it's documented. It has documented behavior. So it means there is a documentation and a Selenium web page, and you can read everything about that. What explicit wait doing? Every 500 milliseconds, ping to the browser, checking if the action is done or is the element there, and coming and returning your answer. It's run in a local part in your language. It works on any condition that you can ever think, and it returns either success or timeout error. You can define absence of element as success condition, so which means you can just check that there is no element. You can customize delays between the retries and exception to ignore. Here is how to implement it. We are calling wait for with the condition and that defining a timeout, how long maximum it will wait until, and returning wait until this condition is true. Here is implementation in the helper class, which says like about the page loader helper. I will talk later in the example I use it. So it's check the visibility of the element and the giving a timeout. The third version is the Fluent Weight. Is almost the same as explicit wait. Just here you can also configure the time between the checks, and you can also define the timeout. So if you need more smart, like you want to implement like smarter or application-specific waiting, you can use the Fluent Weight and use the more parameters like timeout, polling, and ignoring the exceptions or something like that. So this is more customizable version of the explicit wait. So it's also fine to use. So loadable component. Loadable component is base class, and the aim is to make the page objects less painful. It provides standard way of ensuring that page is loaded. Also, it provides the fluent change between the between navigation between the pages. It's reduce a bit like the code duplication, and there is implementation in Java starting from the Selenium 2. That we already have a Selenium 3, and it's also exists in a Selenium 3. And you can, if you are using like Ruby, Python, whenever, you can implement your own loadable component. So the idea is the same. As there is a lot of people that not using Java, so in my example, I use the custom loadable component. I created in Java my own loadable component class. So any people like using a C# or Ruby, they can understand how to create in other language than Java. So, but there is two examples that I will share with you. One is the testing logging in a GitHub, and another is checking finding a question in a Stack Overflow. So in the second, with the Stack Overflow, I used the native loadable component. In the GitHub example, I used the custom loadable component. So I create a custom loadable component to be more easy to understand how it's going to be. So as I already defined, it's a defined class, base class in the Selenium, and you can simply extend your page objects from the loadable component. Yeah, it's too small, but anyway, you have these examples. This is this shows that it extends from the loadable component, and to avoid a code duplication, if you have a good designed page object pattern, you have a base class, you are just extending your base class from the loadable component and implementing the methods in every page object. So, but if you don't have a base class, you have to extend every page object class from the loadable component. How to use it's just page objects. You are using it at page object as a tree, allows better to manage navigation between pages, I said, and if you are extending from the loadable component, you are having a load and is loaded methods to override in your page object class, which is the condition that ensures that your page is loaded. So it can be specific per test. This is the only disadvantage of the page object, because a lot of people say that sometimes I don't need for some pages to mark as a loadable component, it's fine, I don't need to make sure that it's loaded, but I have to override that two methods. So, but better to override once and don't have problem later. This is the loadable component class. This is the native one from the Java. The custom one, just I copied this one and a bit added more exception handling. I will show you. So it has a get. So there is a good point also, if you don't need to specifically in any case to check that it's page loaded. So you don't need to load because there is fast navigation and there is nothing to do. When you are opening, you can skip to call get from the page object. It will just navigate without ignoring the loadable component. If you want to make sure you are calling a get, I'm strongly suggest you to always call with a get. So in the page object, I will show that I'm creating a constructor that every time you're creating a page, it's going through the loadable component. The load method, load and is loaded method. This is the one of the overrides. Is loaded, you are just defining something that made sure that your page is loaded. In this case, I'm checking that this is a GitHub example. I'm checking that the login user, login field is clickable, which means it's already loaded, it's active, so I can just type. And the load is you are overriding when you have a navigation between the two pages. So I didn't write there, but you can anytime override. You can leave it also empty. And when you are calling, you just call new GitHub login page get. This get is the loadable component get, which ensures that the is loaded action is true. So, this is the page load helper. I always suggest you to have all your waiting methods in one place. Here, the suggestion is to handle is clickable, is visible actions in the wait. So from the page objects, you just when you are overriding the is loaded method, you can call is clickable. So here when I'm calling is clickable, it's exactly this method. It's this method. So it waits until the action is a true, and the maximum it will wait 10 seconds. So far, so clear? And here you can define several conditions, like this one is visible, this one is clickable, etc. And the design here I just this is the invocation chain pattern, which allows you to use this pattern, just dot another dot another dot another as much as you want. So examples will be provided. You can just check. So extend if you have a better organized page object, you just can extend your base class from the loadable component. If not, as I already said, you will extend every you will extend for every page object. So they're showing me like 15 minutes. So I need to finish a bit early to answer your questions. But if you will not manage to answer all the questions till tomorrow and the date, I'm here around. You can come. You can talk with me. I can show everything in my laptop, etc. Or if you have any problem you want to discuss with me, you are always welcome. You can just try to have a solution for that. So let's continue. This is the custom loadable component. You remember that the original one here, just for example, I'm providing a better exception handling. And you are open to do anything you want here when you are doing a custom loadable component. So if you have a complex application, better to use a custom loadable component and define everything that you need for the specific application. Maybe your application, you know that it's slow and you need to make it like more timeouts and some stuff like that. You are using custom one. Slow loadable component. It's not like loadable component is for the pages. Slow loadable component is the sections. For example, the page itself contains like one section which has a JAX call, and you need to check exactly that section. For that reason, you can use the slow loadable component, which is almost the same as the loadable component, but you are defining like the check. You are checking exactly small stuff. So maybe this is in the cases that to use the slow loadable component for checking only the small section. Because if you will put that small section in the loadable component, every time even you are not testing that small section, it will wait until it will be loaded. So in this kind of cases, just use a slow loadable component to avoid the extra weight. And there is again the example here. You can take a look in the GitHub, and anytime you have any question, you can just ping me by email or LinkedIn. Let's go a bit faster. So the implementation generally is, I'm already talked about that. It's extending from the slow loadable component. It's exactly the same as a loadable component. You are defining the clock, the timeout, and when you are opening the page, just calling the same get, and it's checking also that one. Implementation on existing project. Let's say we have already project, we are using it, but we don't have a loadable component, how to use it. If you have a good design page object, so this is the thing that I'm always saying, when you start to write a test, don't leave the creating a framework for the tomorrow, because as long you will leave that, as expensive will become it to change later. So let's imagine that we have a good design page object which has a base class, and you are extending all your page objects from the base class. So this is the base class without any loadable component. So just extending here from the loadable component. And this is a page object without loadable component. And when we are extending a base class, so we need to override these two methods and create one constructor that calls get. Calls get means that it will check the is loaded. And basically that's all. If you have a good design page object. So, so far any question, any concerns that we can go back? Specific. Okay. Yep.
У меня есть вопрос насчет вызова методов драйвера. На русском можно, да?
Да, можно.
Насчет вызова методов драйвера в самом тесте. Подскажите, может, вы можете больше рассказать об этом? Почему именно нельзя вызывать в тесте методы драйвера?
Okay. Let's say that we are calling the method type from the driver in the test. To call the type, we need to find the element. Like driver, find element, the class selector, and then type, yes? And we are logging in every test. And every test we are giving like driver, find element, type, username. And we are, first of all, duplicating the same code for every class at least, if you are doing in a before. And for every test, if you are doing in a test. And the worst part, one day, they could be refactored. And they could be changed for the class selector. So maybe before it was username, now it's email. To fix all your tests, you need to go to all the places that you typed username. But when you have it in one place, you have a base page, you have only one place that you are typing that finding element and the typing. You just changing in one place and all your tests are fixed. So I think it's good excuse to not do that. Yep.
And what about method, for example, getting URL? It's common for WebDriver in general. We can use WebDriver method directly now.
I show in the example in the base page, I'm defining the main part of the URL. And usually in a web application, the main part of the URL is a static, and then changing the rest of it. For every page, I'm defining just the rest of the rest part of the URL and just joining it with the base part. So every page object has its URL. So when you are calling from the page page object open, it takes the base part of the URL from base class and joining with the part the second part in the page and then opening the page.
I mean not to open a page, but to get current URL, for example, if I
To check?
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, you're having one method in a base class, which is returns your URL.
You have to rewrite it, its usual method, and I think it shouldn't be changed.
To avoid the kind of, it's not a duplication because anyway you will write it, but this is the common pattern. So if you are using one type of the pattern, to be more clear and readable, it's better to have there, to not have a exception for just one case. But generally, yeah, you can from the test also call the driver and get a current driver, but it's already your choice because that one is static. We are talking about mostly finding element and waiting stuff. So I will go ahead, and if you have a question, we will have an in 5 minutes. So I will go faster on the common failures that these failures I collecting during my experience in talking in conferences, from the questions and what people doing not in the best way. The first is record it, test it. I mean, it was fun in 2010, 11, when first time the Selenium RC was released. There was a plugin in the Firefox. We were just recording, clicking, and it was fun, generating the code and then running. But it's not time anymore to do that. Stop to record the test. Forget about that. It was the game that we played. It was a toy that we played. But now we need to avoid to use that. If you are recording the test, you have a brittle test. So in any change, all your tests are failed, and you have to rewrite all of them. I mean, not rewrite, but re-record it. So avoid to record any test. Forget about that tool. That no one needs that. And the second one, yes, forget about Selenium 1. Just forget that something was in the past. It was fun, but now forget about that. We have Selenium 2, we have Selenium 3, which is awesome. We just can say Selenium 1, thank you, to have a fundament for building the rest of the WebDriver. Not building a framework is another problem. Usually people, saying a framework, I mean base page, page objects, and helpers, driver helper, wait helpers, etc. And just from the beginning, build your framework, so later you will not have huge problems. Selectors, I guess everyone has a problem with them. Like which one use? XPath, CSS class, like ID. I'm strongly suggest you to use class and the ID, which is more reliable than XPath, because when there is changes in XPath, you have to change it. Sometimes you can also use it for the tables. It's a better solution. But XPath, I don't know exact information how it works in the age now. But I had a bad experience with the XPath and the Internet Explorer. They were so slow that it was like, just stop using XPath, just push the UI developers to put the ID class name so it will be testable. Because XPath was killing all the tests. So generally, for me, the priority is class and ID in the first place, then the rest of them. Do not use retry or sleep. I saw frameworks that they are doing like retry 5 times until action will be done. It's already a problem. It shouldn't be. It should be one action with the Fluent Weight, with the Explicit Wait, and one action. If you are retrying, it's already not good. Or sleeping. Do not automate unautomatable stuff. If you see that the thing is too hard to automate, just stop, don't automate. Leave it for a manual check. Everything can be automated, everything, even like Flash that you think that is hard to automate, but we can take a screenshot and compare with the best screenshot. But it's not the best way. So to automate everyone is not the best approach. Don't try to automate things that unautomatable kind of. If you are going to spend a lot of resources to automate small stuff, in the end you will lose. And in the end, just run your tests. And the continuous integration in the local machines, just run them. Because I saw a lot of examples that we have a test, but we don't run them like once a month or something. Like at least once a day you run it. You destroy the build, fail the test, fix them. That's the fun. That's the fun of the automation. For me, the most fun in the automation is fixing the failed builds. It's the most fun, challenging part. Just writing the test is like usual stuff. And that's all. There is my contacts. You can ping me anytime if you have any question later. Yep.
Do you aware of a Selenite framework? The question is, why would you propose everyone to write his own framework? If there is a framework, for example, there are probably a few that one could use that is already written. What is I think it's waste of time.
Yeah, I will say that you are totally right for the small projects, for the startups. But if you have a complex, big application, build yours. Because you will save a time in the end. You will lose a time in the building, but in the end you will save a lot of time because all your framework will be like specific for your application. So if it's my approach. So I'm strongly suggest if there is a complex application, use your framework.
I would say it's the opposite is right, because if the application is complex, then I need a good tested tool. We have frameworks that is used by thousands of web automators, which bugs where bugs are fixed by the community. If I write my own framework, I do practically, basically the same thing on my own.
The same.
No,
Not exactly the same.
Everyone in the field can do it better than
So if you think that someone doing it better than you, just go for that. I'm fine with that. So I'm not forcing anyone to use. It's just my opinion, it's just my experience and that I get during these years. So, yep.
Additional for this question. Which part of the frameworks we need to rewrite, you think? Which parts of framework which already existed? You said that it's better way for your project to rewrite or write a new framework, your framework. And which part of existing framework need to be rewritten or not?
You mean for the loadable component or generally you mean?
In general.
Like writing the framework, I'm always mean about the page objects pattern and the helpers methods. The rest of the tests are up to you. Like it's a part, like the test should use the page objects to implement the stuff. Generally, when I'm talking about the framework, it's the page objects and the helpers. Somewhere there was question.
Yeah. I would have a question about the layers. So could you please just come back to the layers while you have the layers? So the question is that you initially proposed to call only the page objects. But let's say we interact with 5 pages in the one test. So do you think there is a reason to create any other intermediate layer where we have business logic, not to, if we have, let's say, repeating the same logic, calling the same pages all the time?
So let me go there. It's 2 bars over here. We are talking about
Slide 13, right?
this one.
13.
Yeah.
This one.
So yeah, so we have here the page objects,
Yep.
and then we have the test.
Yep.
But if we have the same repeating actions all the time, if we have, let's say, we are calling the 5 pages all the time in the test, do you think there is a reason to create some kind of intermediate layer with the business logic? Or
You can do.
Have to copy paste this logic in all the tests?
No, you can add a layer. I mean, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm also say that in the previous diagram there is an extra layer here. So if you have another layer that you reducing the code duplication, just go for it. Just don't jump between the layers when you are writing the test. Yep.
На одном из последних слайдов у нас там была отличная фраза, что нужно прогонять тесты при каждом билде. Идея классная, она позволяет нам избавиться в какой-то степени от регрессов в приложении. Соответственно, у меня вопрос в связи с этим. Вот у нас крупный продукт, и Selenium тесты там занимают где-то 2-3 часа в 10 потоков параллельно. Вот что с этим делать? То есть я разработчик, например, я коммичу код, мне нужно быстро получить ответ, все ли хорошо.
The same, we have a problem with our company. We have more than 4,000 tests now, and it runs about 2 hours. We're just running them per merge. So before the merge, we are running, making sure that during the 10 commits, nothing was changed, tests are not broken. Then we are merging. So we are running per merge, which is not per build, which is kind of a solution for that. Because running the Selenium test per commit, it's really awful and it's too expensive.
Я предлагаю, если есть еще вопросы, задавать их в кулуарах, если можете подойти к докладчику, спросить его.
You are always welcome to ask any question outside.
Пожалуйста, ваших